Hello, and welcome to the show. I interviewed the man, Tom Karadza. Tom is the co-founder of Rockstar Real Estate. Him and his brother started the brokerage a few years ago, over 10 years ago now, and I actually worked with them in the past. So Tom's a cool guy. He's like a cool dad that still likes to drink and party and stuff. We didn't really talk about that too much, but I just remember from working with him. And we covered a lot of stuff. We covered inflation. We talked about the importance of owning assets and where, like things that he did in the past that were really good for him today for his net worth and for his situation. So lots of good stuff in there. We also covered little things like the Last Dance documentary and the impact of Michael Jordan, his thinking. We talked about his podcast. So I hope you guys will enjoy. I think there's tons of cool stuff in there. And I wanted to invite you to go to www.welloff.ca/report. There's tons of free stuff in there. You can look at your guide to real estate investing. That'll help you identify what path you should be on today, which path in terms of real estate investing. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that you can download for free. So check it out. Enjoy the episode. See you soon. Welcome to the Well Off Podcast, where the goal is to motivate, inspire, and share success principles. I'm here with Tom Karadza.
Happy to be here. Happy to be here.
Tomislav, and I don't know how to properly pronounce your last name.
No, I'm surprised you have my first name down like that.
I remember you'd say in front of the crowd when you have your life, your terms event.
Yeah. And our last name's weird. It's Karadza. But most people say Karadza.
It sounds Japanese almost.
It sounds a little crazy, I know.
Cool. So for those that don't know, which I'd be surprised if you haven't heard of Tom, but he's the founder or the co-founder of Rockstar Real Estate with his brother Nick. He entered the software industry in 1998, part of the sales team, and pretty much after hating his life for a while, he decided to plunge into running his own business, and that's where Rockstar came from. And I'm sure Tom's going to talk about that a little bit, but Rockstar has become an investor-focused brokerage to a certain degree, although I know you guys don't like to really see yourselves as realtors or whatnot. And they help a lot of investors. I worked with Rockstar for 2 years, and things are awesome here. You guys run things very differently from most people, from most places. So Tom, thank you for joining. And the way I start off is by asking you about your childhood. So I want to know a little bit about where you grew up and certain things you remember from your childhood.
Let's do it. Yeah. So just generally answer that right now.
Yeah. First thing that comes to mind.
Grew up born in Toronto, just off Weston Road in Toronto. Diehard Leafs fan. Mm-hmm. And now a diehard Raptors fan as well. But Leafs, I try to explain this to my son because my son likes the Raptors a little bit more than the Leafs, I feel. And I'm like, when I was young, there was no Raptors. Mm-hmm. There was no TFC. So the Leafs have a special place in my heart. Right. I'm still waiting for that championship. But anyway, born in Toronto, moved in junior kindergarten to Mississauga. Mm-hmm. And that's where Nick and I both grew up. I'm 5 years older than my brother, who co-founded Rockstar Real Estate. Grew up in Mississauga, went to the best high school in all of Mississauga, Philip Pocock Secondary School. It wasn't on Tompkin Road in Mississauga. It was in Etobicoke because we had outgrown the location. They bussed us over to Etobicoke, but loved growing up in Mississauga. And went to University, U of T. Was supposed to go into engineering. When I discovered that for engineering, you had to go downtown Toronto, I then switched to what was called Arundel College. I think it's called UTM now. Mm-hmm. And went to university there, graduated with a psychology and a sociology degree. and then I went into software sales. So I don't know, go figure. And then eventually into real estate.
Yeah.
But that's cool. A little bit. Is that enough?
Yeah, that's perfect. Which part of Mississauga?
So Dixie and Burnhamthorpe area.
Wow. That's so weird because I grew up there too.
Where?
I grew up, it was on River Spray Crescent. I forget the exact address, but it was a big green apartment building.
So on where if I'm at Dixie and Burnhamthorpe, where? South on Dixie?
Yeah, I think it was just south. I believe it was just south of Burnhamthorpe.
Yeah, got it. Cool.
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
Yeah. So, and I also went to UTM.
Yeah, you did, eh?
Yeah, I did.
Did you go to Philip Pocock?
No, I went to a French school.
Oh, got it. Oh my gosh, you can speak French?
You didn't know that?
No, I don't think I knew that.
Yeah. So I worked with you guys for 2 years. I don't know if the only time we actually sat down and had a conversation was when I did your podcast because you're always so busy. I'm not taking a shot at you. I'm just saying I know you got a lot going on.
No, that's fair. I mean, I think Nick and I are probably both guilty of, and this is something it's been through my whole childhood, and I don't know if I got it from my parents, is that when we decide there is work that we feel we need to do, we just put our heads down and keep doing it to the detriment of social relationships with people around us, for sure.
Yeah.
Like if there's one quality trait that I sometimes laugh about myself where I'm really lacking, it's the ability to spend time with other people in a social environment. I just, for whatever reason, don't do it. I hardly do it anymore with my own friends. I have a small group of friends that I hang out with, and that's it. It's really weird, George.
Well,
so I totally wasn't picking on you. Not at all.
No,
That's
I know.
normal. That's normal behavior.
Have you done any of those personality tests to kind of see what like in terms of the social aspect?
Yeah, and it's weird because on the disc profile, I'm like super high D, and then I'm also super high I for interpersonal. I'm really low S and C for like compliance, paperwork, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But so I have interpersonal skills, but I guess my D is so high that once I decide I want to do something, I just focus on it and I ignore everything else.
Cool.
I'm not saying it's a good way to be.
Yeah.
But it's the way I am.
Yeah. Well, no, obviously you just have to just do what you're naturally inclined to do, and then just be good at that. So what I want to discuss with you, because I kind of want to break it down into 3 sections as we talked about. I want to talk about the start of Rockstar, and maybe just a quick explanation of what Rockstar is, even though I kind of talked about it, but you can say it in your own words.
Yeah, sure. So when, after university, I was working at Oracle and then NetSuite. With the commissions I was making from software sales, I started buying rental properties with my brother. And I remember being stuck in traffic on Highway 403, bumper to bumper traffic, so much traffic every day that I remember looking, I can remember this vividly now, looking to my right and seeing recognizing the guy in the car next to me who was also stuck in traffic, because I had seen him like 3 or 4 days like in a row. And I even recognized the coffee cup that he was holding in his hand. And I remember thinking, I'd already owned rental properties, and back then they were cash flowing. You can still make them cash flow. But back then with the prices, they were cash flowing like crazy. Yeah. And I remember thinking, why is the highway going to Hamilton completely empty? All the money is that way, because that's where we happen to own some rental properties. And I'm stuck in this bumper to bumper traffic going to my corporate job this way. I go, like, if there's any wrong place to be, it's got to be here. I should be doing what everyone else is not doing.
Right.
Like, why am I doing what everyone else is doing? And I just started freaking myself out to the point that I ultimately quit my job. And Nick and I both got our real estate licenses to basically bypass realtors, even though you and I are both realtors, to basically bypass realtors. But I couldn't find people like you, George. Like, I couldn't find people who were, I thought, caring and thoughtful and really wanted to have my back. We found the realtors who were just out to sell us a property and be gone. And I actually didn't even really know there was like investor realtors out there. I genuinely didn't. And so we got our licenses so that we could get access to the board information ourselves. And when I was fed up in the corporate world, I told Nick, I said, look, I never expected this, but why don't we use our real estate licenses, because he got his as well, to start our own business. We'll help investors. I go, where are the Canadians that are helping investors? And I assumed that we were all out there, but because the social media hadn't really taken off, this is like 2006, 2007. We couldn't find each other easily. There was forums online where people were like chatting online, but there wasn't social media. So you didn't know who was doing what as easily as you do today. I know that sounds crazy, but it was true. So we thought, we're going to start a brokerage that can help Canadians buy real estate investments, and we'll stand by their side. Like if there's a problem with the toilets, or if there's a flood in the basement, or a problem with the tenants, they call us. We might not be the ones fixing the toilet, even though both Nick and I have ripped out toilets and fixed toilets, but we'll help them out. And we'll have their back. We'll analyze properties together, and we'll be those people. And that's how Rockstar was formed. It was just myself and Nick. And then we were out of another brokerage. We were actually out of the original Keller Williams brokerage in Oakville.
Yeah.
And then that one went away. And when it didn't succeed, that particular one, we thought, why are we going to put our license with a brokerage that maybe, isn't going to be around? Let's not have that risk in our lives. We want to live life on our terms. Let's start a brokerage ourselves. And that's when we went and founded Rockstar Real Estate. And we started this membership called the Rockstar Inner Circle, which is a big group of investors who all work together. And we have educational classes, and we have newsletters and monthly audios for our investors. And we lead with education. And Rockstar is this weird brokerage where it's like a bit of an education component to it, but then we're on the streets actually doing what we're talking about. So that's the quick story.
Yeah. It's really cool because you have a lot of guys here and women too that work with a lot of investors. Like they do big volume, and you have different people that focus on different things. like Ruben does the high end Mississauga Road type of stuff, and then you have like Erwin who's just, I don't know, works on all sorts of different stuff, kind of running his own little Rockstar
Totally.
within Rockstar. So what is it that you guys are aiming to do? What's Rockstar's mission?
So the first mission for people we work with is to help them live life on their terms.
Mm-hmm.
We believe we should all be able to live life on the terms that we see fit for ourselves.
Yeah.
And personally, I feel the way the economic system is structured in Canada, although Canada is my favorite country in the world, and I believe your parents came here and my parents came here. I'm assuming your parents were not born here.
Right.
Yeah, and my parents were not born here. They came here.
Is it because of the way I look, Tom?
No, not at all.
I
just assume.
Yeah.
I just assume when I meet people whose parents are born in Canada, I'm like, whoa, that's like,
Yeah.
that's weird. That's weird.
Right.
But actually, now that I'm saying that, I'm one of the, I have kids and I'm born here, but
Yeah.
I'm one of the parents that are born in Canada. But your parents came here and my parents came here because Canada had something to offer them. And I believe this is the best country, the education system that we have, the social services that we have, the healthcare system that we have. So I'm very proud to be a Canadian, to be born here. But I believe the economic structure in the Western world is set up to falsely help asset owners, and savers fall behind. And I feel, honestly, I just feel disgusted that that is not explained in schools. And you're left to understand that yourself or learn about that yourself. And so many people never learn that they need to own assets in this economic structure to get ahead, that we wanted to be a brokerage that helped explain that to people. And we aren't even number one fans of real estate. We just believe real estate is one of the asset classes that, when used properly, can help you get ahead financially, as I know you know, and that can help you live life on your terms.
Right.
So, anyway, I'm probably off what you wanted me to answer, but I just believe there's some economic injustices in the way the system is set up. And I really believe that we should be, people who save money should be the ones who get ahead. And we don't live in a world like that. So our mission is to help people buy assets so that they can get ahead, because it's one of the few ways that you really will be able to help yourself.
Yeah, I just remember ever since I was young, the thought of saving money for retirement, like saving $1 million or whatever it was, that thought would just depress me, even as a child. I would just think, I can't imagine working my whole life to save $1 million and then have to be very careful about what I spend when I'm older to make sure. Yeah, like that's
horrible. Horrible. I thought the same way as you.
Yeah. Why do you think, just since you mentioned it, why do you think the system is built that way, that we're not taught about money and about assets and about how to build wealth? We're taught about saving for retirement.
Yeah. Well, that's such a great question. So there's a few components to it. The first thing is the education system has no incentives to teach us that. So there's nobody in the education system who's getting a bonus or a commission to help children understand the financial system. So the education system just does what it wants. If we took a few people high in the education system and said, we are going to pay you a big fat bonus for children when they come into school, if they take a financial literacy test and they do really well on it, you're going to get a bonus. You better believe there's going to be changes in the education system. But we don't put that incentive into the education system. So changes happen are just at, the free will of whoever's going to decide something should change. And it's not really some of the changes that I believe should happen. The second thing is that we're taught to save because our parents went through an era. What country did your parents grow up in?
Lebanon.
Lebanon.
Yeah.
So Lebanon right now, I'm assuming you know what's happening in Lebanon. Central bank being lit on fire.
My mom is in Lebanon right now.
She's in Lebanon.
Yeah. She went to visit her dad right before the explosion happened.
Oh my gosh. And even before the explosion happened, which is almost like the icing on the cake in the worst way possible, the currency issues that's going on in Lebanon. Hyperinflation.
Yeah.
When a society needs to go from living, Lebanon's had a lot of issues. Lebanon, I always think Croatia has had the craziest history because it's always being overtaken by different empires and stuff. And then I think of Lebanon, and I'm like, holy smokes! If there's one country that's had a rougher go at it, it might be Lebanon. But is everyone from Lebanon Lebanese, or are you Palestinian? Like, is it Palestinian?
My grandfather was Palestinian, actually. So yeah, he came to Canada. My dad was born in Lebanon. My dad was born in Lebanon. So yeah, there are a lot of Syrians, a lot of Palestinians.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, like that's to me, you have some context when you talk about hyperinflation and that kind of stuff. But our parents, I feel, when they grew up, I don't know the interest rates in Lebanon, but the history would probably say that they understand money better than North Americans. But when my parents were getting their first house here in Canada in the 1980s, interest rates went up to 16%. They had a mortgage of 16%.
Yeah.
So when they had children getting older, they taught them to pay off debt because they grew up in an era of high interest rates.
Right.
So you had the school system that didn't teach anything. Then you had a generation of parents who were faced with high interest rates, who then taught their kids never get debt because of these high interest rates.
Right.
They didn't know interest rates were going to go down to the zero and inflate asset prices. And teaching us that would not help us get ahead, right? But the intent was pure, but the timing was wrong. So there's that. And then the third thing is, we have an economic system where central banks control the money system, and banks can print money at the government can print money at will.
Right.
So it decreases the value of your savings and my savings. And when governments have no incentive to keep the money at a desired level, and they keep printing more and more money, it just naturally robs savers. It robs you of your time. It robs me of my time through a monetary theft. And because of that, savings has no value, and you have to buy properties. Because
why do you say that? Why do you say that printing money impacts your savings? In what way?
Okay. If my father worked really hard in construction, let's say he was able to save up $10,000 in the 1980s when he was working construction. So he got up at like 5 a.m. He did drywall all through the winter, no heating, like a pretty tough construction job. And let's say it took him an extra 2 years of time through his regular work to save up $10,000.
Right. Yeah.
Saved up $10,000. But that took him over 2 years to pay the mortgage on his house, pay food for the family, pay bills. But on the side, he was able to save up $10,000. So it took him 2 years to fully accomplish that. Well, that $10,000 in the 1980s, if you could buy a house in the early 1980s for like 120 grand, that $10,000 has a lot of value. But let's say he kept that $10,000, which is a representation of his time in the labor force in the market. Yeah. And he gave it to his grandchildren, my children, today. Well, that $10,000, when a house now that was like $110,000 in Mississauga is now $1.5 million, that $10,000 has lost a ton of value. Now, what has the system done? The system has robbed my father of his time. Because the money is, to me, just a stored value of future time. Like, I'm storing my time now to spend it in the future. But when the value is decreased over time, to me, you're robbing me. And I feel like it's worse. I remember my father getting up early, and you're robbing my father. And what it's teaching society is that you have to invest the money, otherwise you're going to fall behind. Right. But why is that the case? Why can't we have savings that go up in value? Because then if George works really hard and saves his money, he should be rewarded. Not penalized. Yeah. And then it wouldn't be such a daunting effort when you said a few minutes ago that it was like, oh my gosh, saving $1 million. That sounds crazy. But it shouldn't be that way. I strongly believe it shouldn't be that way. And it's why I'm a big believer in gold. And it's why I'm a big believer even now in something like Bitcoin that's hard money and properties. So these are things that it makes sense to me. Yeah. So I don't know if I made it too complicated or not.
No, I understand what you're saying. You're talking about inflation and how that impacts savers. Because I've heard you speak on other things many times, but you talk about how the rate of inflation surpasses pretty much like the amount that you're able to save or the interest that you're receiving on your savings. So your dollar value is decreasing over time because of inflation.
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah,
exactly.
For sure. That's the definition.
You summarized it. You summarized it very beautifully. Yeah. Much better. You should be answering these questions. But yeah, that's the whole point. And I just strongly don't believe in that type of system. I don't believe that we should be forced into risky analysis of assets, and you and I shouldn't be armchair economists. I believe George should just be able to do his work, provide value to the marketplace, earn money, and save his money, and the savings shouldn't go down in value. If I was sitting across from the Bank of Canada governor in this country right now, what would their answer be to me that inflation offered us? Like, why is it that it's so widely accepted? Like, why is it that prices have to always go up? Why can't the value of my dollar go up?
Are you saying that inflation is a direct correlation of the amount of money that's printed?
It is.
Yeah.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
That's
So
what I'm saying.
if they print more money, then that leads to a higher rate of inflation.
Typically, there's economists will talk about the velocity of money. If they
Mhm.
print more money and nobody spends it, if we all sit on our hands and don't spend the more money,
Mhm.
you're not going to get the inflation. So there's a couple components to it, but basically, yes.
Right.
And
Yeah.
and I don't understand the importance of inflation in an economy. And anytime
Yeah.
I ask an economist of any sort that believes in it, I don't understand their answers.
Mhm.
It's always too complicated.
Right.
Maybe I'm a simple person.
Yeah.
Save money, should go up in value.
Yeah. It's so funny. That's like such a basic concept too. And I'm an economics major.
Oh, are you? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. I didn't
so-
even know that. Yeah.
So
yeah.
I don't remember anything that I
sure, I'm
learned at
sure.
all.
Yeah.
The only thing I remember on this topic is that money supply is controlled by bonds. Like if they want more money, then they sell bonds.
Issue bonds. Yeah.
Yeah. And if they want to reduce the money supply, then they purchase the bonds. back,
Exactly. Yeah,
whatever.
Yeah.
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 So that's all I remember from
Yeah,
my
yeah, yeah.
4 years of economics.
No, and that's an accurate representation of what's going on. My
Yeah.
question to any professor would be, why does it have to be that way?
Mhm.
Like, why can't the government, if they're going to spend more money, just save the money that they need?
Yeah.
Why do they have to go get more debt and cause inflation?
Yeah.
So-
I understand what you're saying. For me, my perspective, and you might not agree with me, but I almost feel like the people that are taking chances and taking risks and taking action should be rewarded.
Sure. And yeah,
And that's just, but
in this system, I can agree with that for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
I'm just challenging the system, but you're right. In this system, I think if you are taking the risk, you
Yeah.
should be rewarded.
well, in
sure.
a perfect world, if everyone could just be wealthy and work and have money for retirement and all that, that'd be great.
it would be great.
I don't know if there's any place like that on earth that maybe.
No,
I don't know.
none that I know of, but I
Yeah.
think it's possible. We have to check some
Yeah.
stuff, but we'll move on.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to talk to you about the current market because obviously COVID impacted things back in March and April and whatnot. And I know you talk to your guys or guys and girls all the time about what they're seeing in the market now. What are your thoughts on what's happening? So just to kind of, I don't know if you saw this, but they were reporting that prices from July 2020 compared to 2019, the average price increased by 16.9%.
It's crazy, no?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, there's so much happening. It's funny because when COVID started, I guess we went from like full out being busy to almost zero in about 72 hours.
Yeah.
Like there was like a 3-day window where it was like everything's happening.
Yeah.
And then 3 days later, it was crickets.
Right.
And I think it stayed that way for 6 weeks, maybe even 2 months.
Mhm.
And then it was just game on. And I think what's happening is a lot of people, there's a lot of factors at play here, but a lot of, I think what is happening is that there are some people who don't want to be stuck in another shelter in place moment in the home that they had previously. So either they're living with other family members, they're living in maybe a condo and they want, something that's not a condo,
Mhm.
and it's driving some changes in the real estate market. People who are maybe waiting to make a change are saying, holy smokes, if we get locked down again, I want to make a change. And we're hearing that. And
Yeah.
I was just explaining to you how somebody on our team was living in downtown Toronto
Mhm.
and she's now moving to St. Catharines. She wants a fully detached home
Yeah.
and she's out there. So that's definitely happening. And all of that kind of pulled up demand. It's not even pent up demand. It's kind of like future demand that where people may have made these moves, but it's
Mhm.
being pulled up to current day. Because instead of waiting a year or two to like, maybe I'll move out of the
Yeah.
city or something, everyone's pulling up that decision. So you have a bit of pent up demand where the market was shut for a couple months.
Mhm.
And then you have a bit of pull forward demand and interest rates dropped 1.5
Yeah.
to make carrying costs a little easier. And it's all hitting at the same time.
Mhm. It's crazy.
And it's making the market go crazy.
And,
So
and on top of that, there were also people back in March and April that wanted to move, but they were just afraid. And all of a sudden, people are feeling more comfortable now. So you have those people in the market as well. So there's just from all angles. I have no idea what to expect.
and I think we're going to have some economic turbulence ahead. Like you can't go through what we've gone through and just provide government stimulus forever without
Mhm.
kind of facing some reality. So at some point, I got to think some crap's got to hit the fan somewhere.
Yeah.
But with the amount of stimulus that's entered the market, no one's really been affected that much. I shouldn't say
Mhm.
nobody. People have been
Yeah,
affected,
yeah.
but there's been a lot of money that's been pushed
For
out.
sure.
And we'll see what happens in the next 18 months.
So obviously, we haven't seen COVID before, but you've been in the market for a while. Have you seen any trends like this in the past? Anything that was similar to this at all?
Yeah, this most similar one that we saw was worse than this was 1990 when the Bank of Canada raised interest rates 3%.
Mhm.
And they did that in 1 month. So can you imagine now, like people freak out about a quarter point or half point. Imagine raising interest rates 3% in a month. That's what they did in 1990, and it collapsed the Toronto real estate market, and it collapsed it for a long time.
Yeah.
So there was a deep recession there, and it lasted years. Like the property prices did not come back, I want to say till 1996. Don't hold me to that, but I believe it was a full 6-year cycle. So yeah, I've seen worse than this for sure. But this moment reminds me of that moment. I'm like, where are we? Are we in the eye of the storm right now? Like, is there more turbulence ahead that just hasn't hit yet? And this is where, for real estate investors, I think we all have to be really careful that if you need to lock in your interest rate so you can control your costs on your mortgage, you do it. You know, you can analyze your cash flow, make sure you have enough savings in the bank. You want to be a smart real estate investor when where everybody in the world is confused about what's going to happen in the next 18 months. This is a time to prepare yourself.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting, I recently got a mortgage with RBC. It's a variable mortgage. However, my monthly payments don't change. So even if the interest rate goes up or down, it's just going to impact the amortization of the loan.
Huh. Is that a new product?
I don't know.
It's a variable rate.
Yeah.
It's almost like a commercial, like a flat line mortgage. It's just going to stay flat. And then just internally it's going. Did you have to accept a higher monthly payment out of the gates to get that mortgage? You probably did.
I don't think so.
No,
it was whatever the current rate was. That was the monthly mortgage, and they said that's it. It's not going to change.
So if rates go up, they're just going to eat more of your payment into interest payments.
Yeah.
But your amount's not going to change.
I don't know if it's going to change that ratio or if it's just going to extend my amortization from 30 years to whatever it is. It's going to be. Yeah.
What an interesting product.
Yeah. I think that a lot of banks are doing that apparently.
Really?
I haven't looked into it too much, but I believe that a lot of banks do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nick and I are just we're buying some more property right now, and I haven't got to that point yet. So now you've got me something to check out. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. I was going to ask you, because I don't remember ever hearing you say what kind of investment properties you go after. Are you a student rental investor? I know you must have some of those.
Yeah. I think it just changes. Like when Nick and I started, it was anything we could qualify for. There wasn't like this grand plan. It was like, do you think we can get, like, that property looks good? Do you think we can get it? And it started with student rentals. So we've been in the student rental market for 20 years now. Yeah, just about 20 years. And then it turned into single family rentals and rent to owns. We like that strategy. And we like that strategy because we got some option fee up front. And then in that time we were also Nick's flipped. I've flipped properties. So it's more just been, where's the opportunity? Not necessarily, a certain type. I'll have to say, now that I'm 47 and my financial situation is a little different, I have a little bit more access to some cash than I did when we started. Now I'm getting a little choosier. Yeah. Now it's like, okay, I don't think I'm going to get another student rental right now. Even though there's nothing wrong with student rentals. We just bought this commercial real estate. We're looking at some other properties. I don't want to share where because the market's so competitive. I don't even want to share where right now. We're looking at some other residential stuff right now. But I'm a little choosier now in the area because I'm starting to, your portfolio, I can make some choices I couldn't make before. I can choose where I want to invest. I can pay the money to where, if I want to centralize in Oakville, I can do it. Whereas in the past, it was like, where's Hamilton again? Oh, there's good properties out there. Let's go. So yeah, there's been no grand strategy other than cash flow. Right. It makes sure the property can pay for itself because of our lessons in 1990.
So 2 questions. The first one is, are you just still getting like normal residential mortgages, or are you getting like blanket mortgages or something? I don't know.
Just regular. Well, we have commercial and residential, and just regular commercial and regular commercial and regular residential mortgages. Okay. No big blanket stuff. I've never seen anyone do that in any capacity really well. I know people talk about it and I think it sounds good, but whenever we've explored it, we've never seen it done really well. Yeah. Doesn't mean you can't do it, but Alexander might come in and take a picture.
Oh, okay, sure. Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, I saw you, George's. George. Who's this person walking in?
Yeah, okay. So you haven't had any issues with hitting your limits with the banks?
Or? Oh my gosh, all sorts of them. Oh yeah, no. We've had all sorts of problems hitting all sorts of caps with the banks. We just go to other banks. So when you hit a cap, where we've lost the most opportunity is we've accepted the limiting belief that when a bank tells you no, that's definitive. Yeah. And we've now realized that when TD tells you no, If you just walk across the street to RBC,
Mhm.
maybe that same day, they're going to tell you, yeah.
Right.
I remember people saying no to us that you couldn't get a student rental financed at Royal Bank. And then later that same month, someone's getting a student rental financed at Royal Bank.
Yeah.
And so, no, we hit the caps at all time.
Yeah.
I remember also Royal Bank telling us, and this isn't, Royal Bank's great, I'm not picking on them,
Mhm.
but they told us that there was a cap of like 6 properties. It was 5 or 6. I think
Yeah.
it was 6.
Yeah.
Can't buy more than 6. Can't buy more than 6, Tom. Then our financial net worth changed a little bit.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it was like, oh, you know what? After sending in your paperwork, you guys, we'll qualify you in a couple more properties.
Really interesting. Because I
Oh,
just had a conversation about that, and they were saying that's it.
That's
when
it,
you
you're
have
done.
when you have 5 with RBC, you're done.
yeah. Is it
So
5? Okay, I've
yeah.
forgotten what the cap
Well,
is.
maybe I think it's 5, maybe plus a cottage or
Okay,
something, like
okay.
whatever
Oh, yeah.
it is.
Yeah, no, we had the same thing. And for many years, they didn't like us because they're
Mhm.
like, sorry, guys. And then it was about 5 years ago, we came back to them with some new financial documents
Yeah.
and stuff. And we just kind of thought, like, we're going to get rejected again. And they're like, yeah, no, actually, we'll do a couple more with you guys. And we're
Yeah.
like, oh, how interesting is this? And to be fair, we started using some corporations. So like our financial setup wasn't just personal
Mhm.
anymore. We set up corps. We had some money in corps, some property in corps.
Yeah.
So maybe that helped Royal Bank approve us
Got it.
using some different asset kind of structures.
Got it.
But it also taught me a big lesson that like it's interesting that when your financial situation changes,
Yeah.
they change their answer to you.
Right.
Right.
Well, I'm realizing that banks are pretty flexible. Like they might have their structure in place, but you can work it, and it depends on who's representing you too. Like you have some people that they don't, if they see that you don't meet the criteria, that's it, they give up
Done.
on
Yeah.
you. But some people will actually dig deep and try to get something for you.
And those bankers are worth their weight in gold.
Yeah.
And that's why we
Yeah.
tell everybody, I think both you and I know some different good banking
Mhm.
contacts, and they're worth their weight in gold.
Yeah.
So yeah, anyone listening to this, like if you're told no in one place, just go across the street to another. Just keep asking.
Yeah.
Likely someone's going to tell you, yeah. But hitting the caps, yeah, that's a constant battle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nick and I would buy properties firm with having no financing in place.
Right.
Thinking that we could put like 5% down, only to learn that we had to put, there was a point we had to put 25% down. You know,
Mhm.
everyone thinks 20 is like, if you put 20, you're good.
Yeah.
We thought we could do 5 on one. They told us no. We had to end up putting 25% down. We almost started hard,
Oh, yeah.
like trying to.
But you had the means.
No,
to
we
do
didn't
it.
have the
No.
means.
No?
We just had to go and collect money from
Oh, yeah.
family and friends to get it done.
Mhm.
Yeah, disaster. But that's how you
Well,
learn too, right?
Yeah, that was the second part of my question. So, if you were gonna go back in time, I know you've been asked this before, but is there like a certain property type that's performed really well for you and that you would have focused more energy on buying more of?
Yeah. Okay. I think a couple years ago, I would have said all in on student rentals, and I'm still a big believer in student rentals. Just they cash flow beautifully,
Mhm.
and even though, like, let's say the COVID era is our worst case scenario for student rentals because there's a lot of talk of foreign students maybe not returning. I can tell you right now, across all the universities that we keep tabs on, the schools that we have in the student rentals that we own ourselves, not an issue right now.
Mhm.
Everything's fully rented out. In fact, all the students seem to not want to stay home with their parents,
Mhm.
and they want to go to school. Maybe if this continues for 2 years, maybe there will be a bit of a problem. Who
Right.
knows? But for us, student rentals, students do not treat them poorly. That's the myth out there. If you
Mhm.
treat students with respect, they treat you and your properties with respect.
Mhm.
So no issues. They cash flow really well. The downside on student rentals is less banks want to deal with them.
Mhm.
So if you want to refinance and pull out equity, sometimes you have to go begging to like 5 or 6 banks
Yeah.
to get approval.
Yeah.
That's a bit of a negative. So that would be number one until a couple years ago, because if I knew duplexes and legal second suites were going to be like, if I knew people were going to pay, for example, we have a Rockstar Inner Circle member investor in Brantford. He has a side-by-side duplex. Each side is being rented out for over $2,000 a month.
Nice.
That's one single family structure.
Yeah.
That's collecting over $4,000
Mhm.
in rent. If I knew that that was going to take place in 2020, I would just focus purely on single family homes and be converting those into duplexes, like starting 10 years ago, 50,
Yeah.
20 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? Because the income on that, your income doubled. We rented out single family homes in Brantford not too long ago for like $1,800 total.
Mhm. Mhm.
Same house now set up as a duplex is getting over 4,000.
Right.
Like, it's incredible.
Yeah.
So to me, that single family home that could be also converted to a duplex is such a sweet spot,
Mhm.
because you could rent it out as a single family home. You could rent it out as a duplex. If one unit is vacant, the other unit's earning you income. The banks love single family homes more than student rentals.
Mhm.
to me, that's a real sweet spot. And I think that trend's going to continue as the GTA continues to have a housing shortfall, even with our immigration falling right now. I think that's a short-term blip. Like Canada, if anything, I think is still going to be a destination from people from Lebanon, Croatia. My mom's Scottish, from Scotland. Like, I think it's still going to be a destination. So I'm not too concerned with that.
What is happening, like from what you've read on immigration? Do you know? Is it like completely shut down right now? Or
no, it's not complete. Planes were landing with new immigrants into Canada right through COVID. No one knows this except a friend of ours works up at the airport and was like, hey guys, there's like planes landing. These are new immigrants still coming into the country.
I'm assuming a lot less than before.
A lot less. It looks like it's way less than half. Like way less, way more. Am I saying this? Less than half the amount is coming in currently,
which is still pretty good. If you think if it's close to half, what was?
And I think it's at about 40% in the GTA specifically. And I'm like, well, that's still 40%. I thought it was. I thought it was going to be zero. So, and I think it's a bit of a blip. Like Canada is still extending offers out to new immigrants based on our point-based immigration system. So I don't think this is going to continue. And from my understanding, in countries like Australia, for example. A fairly new member of our team is from Mumbai in India. Great guy. And he still has friends back home. And he says, he's telling us that some of his friends who went to school in Australia are saying that, and I don't know this for fact, so anyone listening to this, please fact check this for yourself, is changing some of the laws that it's a little harder for students to get citizenship and status in Australia after school. So word going back to his friends is come to Canada.
Right.
And Canada just changed some of its immigration laws for people who are here as visitors. If they are skilled and can get a job offer, you no longer have to leave the country when your visitor status is up. You can stay while you're working on getting proper work status here. That's new. That just came out in August 2020. Really? So Canada is very aggressive on new immigration. So when I hear things like that it's still a destination for students, and I hear things that Canada's making changes around. I think this immigration thing, Canada is going to be more of a destination going forward to me, not less, with our school system and more importantly with our healthcare system.
Right. That's a good point.
I think we're in a sweet spot here. I mean, you and I live here, so maybe I'm biased, but I don't know. I think we're in a weirdly unique, great area.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah. I was thinking about this the other day. Can I see myself living in the States somewhere? Like San Diego or something, like some of the places I've been to. And although they're really nice spots, I just can't see myself being there. I just think that Canada's home.
Me too. Yeah. I'm the same. Yeah. And but when I was younger, and I'm much older than you, but when I was younger, I remember thinking, wow, it'd be so cool to live in America, in the US, like San Diego specifically, California. Yeah. And now with everything going on in the world, America and otherwise, like, man, Canada's such a sweet spot. We got a little bit of everything. We could use more sunshine.
Yeah, that's it.
But no, I'm very grateful.
Yeah.
And I also think Canada, just because we're so built on immigration, that it just naturally breeds a certain respect for different ethnic I'm not saying we're perfect in this country by any means, but it naturally breeds a certain respect for people of different cultures. It's almost like bred into the system here because immigration is such a huge component of this population base. Yeah. And I like it. I love it.
Yeah. And it's cool because you don't really have anyone picking on a certain ethnicity because there's just people from all over. So it just doesn't happen really that much.
And then look at me. I'm born in Canada. My father's a refugee who escaped Yugoslavia, who would go into jail and risked getting shot climbing over mountains into Austria to escape that country.
Yeah.
He was a refugee and declared refugee status. They stuck him on a boat through Germany onto the coast of Germany, and then they shipped him to Canada because they wouldn't keep him there. Yeah. Right. And I think it was the church that paid his boat ticket to come to Canada. Wow. Canada my mom didn't have a really great upbringing in Scotland, very poor family, and they wanted a better life. And she was able to take a plane, but they came over here. And I'm like, this is like Canada I wouldn't exist if it wasn't for this country. Yeah. Like they met in Toronto. I literally would not exist if it wasn't for this country. Yeah. So
how crazy is that? Two people with completely different stories.
And only because the attractiveness of Canada. Yeah. That Nick and I are even here. Like the chances of me even being alive are so remote. So the fact that I get to sit here across from you and your parents being from somewhere else and Rockstar where we're trying to help other people, I feel very lucky and very
Mhm.
fortunate every day.
Yeah, for sure.
Even if I don't sit down and socially hang out with you, George, I feel very grateful that I
Yeah.
know, but I'm being sincere here. I feel very grateful that there's someone like you on the streets, and I know you're such a good guy, helping people, your clients, doing the right thing by them, that you're out there.
Mhm.
I think that's what makes this country great. And I
Yeah.
like knowing that there's people like you out there,
Yeah.
right?
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. We don't have a lot of time left. I want to touch on your podcast. So, I just out of curiosity, what has the podcast led to for you? Because it's relatively new. I think it's a year old or so. So how has that changed? That's a new medium. It's still kind of the same concepts. You're using the podcast as a way to provide to share a message. What are your thoughts on what it's led to for you guys?
You mean from like a business point of view?
Yeah, yeah,
I think when someone gets to listen to, so for example, on your podcast, if somebody gets to listen to you, George, here for an hour, it's just such a naturally easy way to build trust in people.
right.
And sales comes down to trust.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you're buying or who's buying it from you. They're buying you,
Hmm.
the individual. And if they trust you, it makes the sale a lot better and easier for both parties. And I think the long format of a podcast allows people to build trust much easier.
Hmm.
Instead of putting like a marketing mess, like it's not like, George, I do free home evaluations on
Yeah,
like
yeah,
some bench somewhere on
yeah.
the street. They get to hear you asking questions, your thoughts on guests, your thought. They're going to naturally build a certain level of trust with you and say, I like this guy. I'm going to do
Mhm.
business with him. So the podcast has really opened up, from a sales point of view, the ability to reach more people in a
Mhm.
better format, where we can all exchange our thinking and build relation. Even though it's kind of like talking into a black hole when you do a podcast, there's other people listening out there,
Mhm.
and trust is being built through this. And it's one of the best platforms around. I really do believe podcasts. I love getting to listen to people in a long format environment, because you really get to the bottom of who they are.
Yeah.
You listen to them long enough, you know their quirks. So it's good. So from a business point of view, probably the best way to build trust.
So, is this something you feel like you should have done earlier?
Oh yeah, no, we
Yeah.
knew for 2 years before we did it, we knew we should be doing it.
Yeah.
So we've seen enough from a business point of view. We've seen enough media come into play. So when we started, pay-per-click advertising wasn't even Google AdWords, and we were buying like Real Estate Investment Canada, like for I think 2 cents.
Oh yeah.
Like it was basically like free. And we're like, what? Why is no one else buying? Why
Yeah.
aren't
Yeah.
people buying? And so when any new media comes into the world, if you can jump on that new media quickly, you tend to get first mover advantage,
Mhm.
right? So we then saw Facebook come out, and we saw everybody who was on there early. Ads were really cheap on there. You could build a following really easily. Instagram, same thing. Twitter,
Mhm.
same thing. So when podcasting came out, we knew it was something to jump on, but we were so busy with some other stuff.
Yeah.
We delayed like 2 years, but the whole time we knew we would do it. And looking back, yeah, we should have done it sooner, but I don't really have regrets
Mhm.
about it. But we should have started sooner for sure.
Was there anything that you committed to, like let's say Facebook advertising or something similar to that didn't pan out for you guys?
Yeah, no, you know what it was? We're listen, we're so old. We were doing newspaper ads, and we figured out that Fridays were the best day for local newspaper ads, because all the coupons went out on Fridays, and it
Mhm.
seemed like that paper was read the most. I guess people wanted their coupons,
Yeah.
like all the flyers for the different stores. And so many Fridays. On Monday, you had to commit to the Friday paper, and we would be checking the weather forecast, because if it rained on Friday, the delivery boys, because we were doing community newspapers,
Yeah.
they would not deliver. We were convinced they weren't delivering, because we were measuring our ads, and any rainy days we got like no response.
Okay.
So the biggest bombs were always rainy Fridays, where we had spent sometimes for a little ad, like maybe for us, maybe this doesn't sound like a lot of money. For
Mhm.
us, it was like the end of the world, $1,500
Oh.
on an ad.
Yeah.
And it just got nothing.
Mhm.
So newspaper ads on rainy days, horrible. And then after that, when social media came out, we learned that if you build a following on like Facebook, organically, it might be great. But if Facebook changes its rules, and that they don't share all of your posts to your whole audience, because it's
Mhm.
getting so crowded out there, you ultimately never want to be on a platform that's controlling you and put a lot of effort into it. So if I could share any advice with you or anyone else, you want to build your own email list. And the reason you want to build your own email list at all costs is because you control those emails.
Mhm.
Even if somebody charges me to send the emails in the future, right, and I can't just blast them out.
Yeah.
If I can build a relationship with people, I own that email address, and I own that relationship directly. There's no Facebook or Instagram or anything in between me.
Mhm.
So owning the relationship is ultimately the most important thing.
Right.
Which is why podcasts are great too. because you're speaking directly to people. You're owning that relationship.
Right, exactly. And that email thing is awesome because I remember I took the class. I forget which one it was. It was the 2-day event.
Okay. Our entrepreneur summit, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think in there or maybe somewhere else, but you discussed like the structure kind of for your email list, and I've been implementing that, and it's been awesome. Like
cool.
people, I've had way more interaction with people just
Awesome.
by sharing a little bit about me rather than like, hey, the market's this or that. I find that people want to know. Yeah, so that's been really good. Okay, so I want to move on to the next section, which is the random 5. So I'm going to ask you 5 random questions, and just let me know the first thing that comes to mind.
Cool.
So the first one is, how useful would you be in a zombie apocalypse? What skills do you have that would help you and others survive?
Oh man, I would be very useful. You know why I know this?
Yeah.
Our naturopathic doctor, I don't know if you know this, I just did my DNA test. He said my tolerance for pain is some of the highest he's ever seen in
really?
my DNA.
Yeah.
So zombies could really hack at me pretty good, and I'm going to still fight.
Yeah.
So in a zombie apocalypse, you want me on your side.
Okay.
I'm there to the bitter end.
Yeah.
And I have no fear. I'm going to face those guys down.
Yeah.
So
that must be the Croatian in you.
It's the Croatian and the Scottish, I
Yeah.
think, combined. But yeah, no, I'm very useful in a zombie apocalypse.
Cool. What's your earliest memory?
For some reason, my grandfather on my mother's side, so when my grandfather passed away when I was really young, he was 62, heart attack. And for whatever reason, I was crawling on the floor in his house, and he was crawling next to me, like trying to make me laugh.
Mm-hmm.
And I somehow have this memory. And I don't know my age at that time, but I feel like I was crawling. And because I never got to know him, because he passed away before I would really be able to have discussions with him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I can't remember the age, but it was shortly thereafter. Yeah, that's like my earliest memory of him on his all fours crawling next to me, like chasing me or something.
Yeah. Well, that's a cool memory.
Yeah.
That's good. Number 3, where would your friends or family be most surprised to find you?
Most surprised to find, I think they would be surprised to find me out at night after 10 p.m.
Yeah.
I want to go to bed. I like going to sleep.
Yeah.
I'm known for this. Out anywhere after 10 p.m. I want to be at home reading my books and falling asleep early.
That's so funny because you guys, you do your Christmas parties like during the day.
Yeah.
So
well, we do our Christmas party during the day because they got too out of control at night.
Yeah.
You know some of the stories, I think.
Yeah, I know some.
But yeah, and I love during the day parties because I get to be home by, like, if I get to be home at 7 o'clock and we've already been out, had some drinks, had some good food in somewhere, I'm the happiest guy ever.
You guys are funny. Like you and Nick are so funny when it comes to partying. Like I know you just love to do it. So you're like a cool, kind of older with a young spirit. But yeah, when you were a kid, what movie did you watch over and over again?
You know what, this one is just etched in my mind, and I don't think I was quite a kid, but I just watched it so many times. It was Braveheart.
Oh yeah,
Braveheart. I just loved that movie. I think it was on cable TV when they like had movie weeks and they just replay a movie because you didn't have the internet. You couldn't.
He was Scottish, right?
Yeah. And because he was Scottish, and at the end he was screaming freedom, and I was like, yeah. I watched that thing. I don't know how many times. I haven't watched it in like 10 years. I got to go back to it, but I watched it. I don't know how many times I've watched that.
I watched it for the first time like 2 months ago.
Is it cheesy now?
It was pretty good.
Is it pretty good still?
Pretty good. The freedom part's a little cheesy, but
I remember it being so cool.
Yeah.
I think I'm scared to watch it again because I'm like, if it's really cheesy, I'm gonna like, in my mind that's like the best movie ever.
It wasn't like, it was kind of bad for a kid to watch because he was so violent and just
but
ripping people's heads off.
But I think it was like late teens. When I was watching.
Fair enough. All right, and this is one that I always ask: what success principle do you live by?
Always do the right thing. I mean, always do the right thing. I try to teach my son this. Anytime I've strayed from that principle, it's always led me to not sleeping well at night, feeling not good about myself and life in general. If I can always do the right thing in real estate, by other people, in your relationship and my relationship together, I feel like I have like a lightness about me that, it's a great way to live. And I find sometimes doing the right thing costs me money because sometimes I screw up. And to fix the problem, I have to take money out of my pocket that I did not want to spend or did not plan to spend. I have to spend it to fix the problem. But it's the right thing to do.
Right.
And we try to get everybody here at Rockstar understanding that that's our number one principle. We actually have 3 that I like to live by and we'd like to instill at Rockstar. Do the right thing, treat others as you would treat yourself, and give 110% in everything you do. But do the right thing. is everything to me.
Yeah.
That is what life is about. We all have a strong moral compass. Everybody knows what the right thing to do is. And I feel like I'm striving to get to like perfect at that. But, you know, there's always going to be something that challenges you and you're like, damn, I didn't quite, you know, why did I answer George like that? That was not the right thing to do. But that's my goal.
Yeah. Perfect. I know you have to go soon, but I had 2 more questions, bonus questions.
Sure.
And then you can end this. But the first bonus question, what would be your walkout song if you were a fighter?
Oh, Lose Yourself, Eminem.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Lose Yourself.
Didn't expect that at all.
Yeah.
I know you guys like AC/DC and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. No, Lose Yourself. There's that one line in Lose Yourself where it's you only get one shot.
Yeah.
And to me, that just summarizes life, right? Like, let's make the most of it.
I can only imagine where you were at in your life when that song came out.
Oh, my God. I got to tell you a funny story. When I was in software sales at NetSuite and they were about to go public within about a year, every month was a really like a big deal, like closing the monthly close to make sure we're closing enough business. And end of every month, I would come into the underground parking in this building. It was just off the 401 by the airport here in Toronto, and I would be blasting "Lose Yourself" into. And when you have when it's in the underground garage, it just echoes right through the garage. And the other sales managers would always just kind of like look over at me like, "Who are you? Like, what's wrong with you?"
Yeah.
But anyway, sorry.
Okay, and the last thing, because I want to get your opinion on this, but did you watch the Last Dance documentary?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Did you enjoy it?
Oh my gosh. When you see how competitive he was, like how valuable, did you hear when Tracy McGrady said, I wish I had watched that when I had entered the league? Yeah. And Tracy McGrady, I don't know if you know the Raptors history, how he was on the Raptors.
Yeah,
okay.
I know that.
And when Vince Carter left, like I'm one of the Torontonians. I haven't forgiven Vince Carter. Yeah. Like, you know, everyone's clapping for him. I'm still so bitter over that. Yeah. I'm like, no, screw you.
Yeah.
As a person, I'm sure he's great and I would help him out, do the right thing. Yeah. But as a player, I'm like, no, you left us.
Yeah.
But Tracy McGrady, after watching it in one of the interviews somewhere, he said something along the lines of that if he had watched that sooner, he thinks he might have even been a better player than he was. And I thought, man, like the impact that documentary had, there's going to be some killer basketball players coming in the next generation because they're all going to watch that documentary. Yeah. And when you see how competitive Jordan is, and he doesn't care about social media, doesn't care about the accolades. Yeah. He doesn't care about anything.
The celebrity,
doesn't care, just wants to win. How amazing was that? Yeah. And to me, he was doing the right thing for him. He wasn't trying to like kind of appease anyone around him. He was just doing him. He was true to himself. Yeah. And I thought, and so many people were like Rodman. Remember when Rodman was doing like the WWF? I think it's WWE now, but he was like doing some like right in the middle of the playoffs or something like that. Like, that was phenomenal. I love that. Was an awesome, I'm sure you did too.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite things to watch. It was awesome.
Every day it was released because I was getting them on Netflix. I don't know how you.
Yeah, me too.
I was watching them every morning. I like to read in the morning. Yeah, I tell everyone, do not watch videos in the morning. Yeah, it would come out before I would leave the house. I'm watching the whole thing. I was addicted.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, so to end things, you want to tell people what services you offer and how they can reach out to you?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we have a bunch of stuff on rockstarinnercircle.com, videos and reports and real estate stuff, free copies of our books. So if anyone wants any real estate information from us, they can go to rockstarinnercircle.com.
Cool. That's the best way to reach out to you or follow you on Instagram, whatever.
Yeah. And it's all linked from there.
Yeah, there you go. All in one.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. George, really, this was really fun, man. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, it was fun. Yeah, thanks. We'll do it again in the future.
Cool.
Appreciate it. Thanks once again for listening to another episode of the Well Off Podcast. Just want to remind you that if you do appreciate the content, all I ask is that you comment, maybe like it if you can on the platform that you're listening to it on, and finally share it with friends and family. I'd love to get the message out there, and it would mean a lot if you can share it. And finally, I just wanted to offer you, as a valued listener, a free copy to the Roadmap to Real Estate Investing, which is a document that I've put together which helps you identify what strategy would best suit your needs at this current time. You go over certain things that are included in this document step by step, and it'll hopefully provide you with some clarity. So have a look. You can go to www.welloff.ca/guide to download your free copy.